All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving into a huge idea in the software world, and it's all about a kind of counterintuitive concept, thinking small to build really, really big. We're talking about microservices. So, what are we really talking about here? Well, at its heart, it's a story of two totally different ways to build software. On one side, you've got the old way, the monolith. Think of it as one giant solid brick, where everything is fused together. And on the other side, you've got microservices, which is more like a massive box of Legos, lots of small, independent pieces that all snap together. Now, you gotta ask, right? Why did the biggest tech companies on the planet just up and abandon that old way of doing things? This move from one giant block to a ton of tiny pieces. Well, it wasn't just for fun. It was a fix for some absolutely massive growing pains. So what was the big problem they were so desperate to solve? Okay, so here's how we're gonna break this all down. First, we'll get a good handle on the old way, the monolith. Then we'll dig into this new idea, microservices. After that, we'll explore three huge benefits: scaling smarter, building stronger, and moving faster. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about the real-world trade-offs, because nothing's perfect. So let's start with the monolith. I want you to imagine a giant, incredibly detailed sculpture, but it's carved from a single massive block of clay. Every feature, every button, every piece of logic is all part of this one single thing. And look, when you're just starting out, this actually makes a lot of sense. It's simple. But this is where the headache starts. As that sculpture gets bigger and more popular, the problems just multiply. Let's say one tiny part of it, the nose, for example, gets really popular. Well, to handle the extra attention, you can't just copy the nose. You have to copy the entire sculpture. And a single crack, just one little bug, could compromise the whole thing. And forget about having multiple teams working on it at once. It just becomes this slow, risky, complicated mess. So all that frustration, it led to a really revolutionary idea. What if instead of one giant clay sculpture, we built things with Lego bricks? Small, independent pieces. Each one has its own job, and you can add them, remove them, or swap them out super easily without breaking the whole thing. And that is the core concept right there. You take your big application and you break it down into a whole suite of smaller services. So one service just handles user logins. That's his whole world. Another one is only responsible for the product catalog. A third one manages the shopping cart. Each one is totally autonomous and does just one single job. What's interesting is this isn't some brand new out-of-the-blue idea. It actually goes way back, echoing a classic principle from the old Unix philosophy. Do one thing and do it well. Every single microservice, every one of those little Lego bricks, is designed to do its one specific job perfectly. The real art is in how you connect them all together. So let's look at the first huge win you get from this approach, scaling smarter. How does this whole Lego idea actually help a business handle, say, a flood of new users without breaking the bank? And wow, this turd just says it all, doesn't it? With a monolith, if your login page gets hammered with traffic, you have to scale the entire application, the user profiles, the payment system, all of it. It is incredibly wasteful. But with microservices, you just add more logging bricks. That's it. It's targeted, it's efficient, and it saves a ton of money and resources. Okay, next up, building stronger, more resilient systems. Let's be real, software is not perfect. Things are gonna break. The really important question is what happens when one of those bricks inevitably cracks? In that old monolithic world, it was like a line of dominoes. A single bug in a pretty minor feature, I don't know, maybe the part that generates shipping labels, could cause a chain reaction that brings the whole application crashing down. Your entire online store could go dark because of one tiny mistake. But with microservices, the failure is isolated. The blast radius is contained. If the service that gives you product recommendations fails, who cares? I mean, really, you can still search for what you want, you can still add it to your cart, and you can still check out. The most important parts of the business just keep on humming. The system degrades gracefully instead of just completely collapsing. And the crucial thing here is that this architecture has safety gear built right in. Think of it like a circuit breaker in your house. If one service starts failing over and over, the system can automatically trip the breaker. It stops sending requests to the broken part.
which gives it time to recover, all while keeping the rest of the system totally safe and online.
And the final big benefit we're going to cover, it isn't just about code. It's about people. It's about speed. Because it turns out, how you structure your software has a profound impact on how you structure your teams, and ultimately, how fast they can get things done. This architecture is what gives rise to the famous two-pizza team idea, the concept that any team should be small enough that you can feed the whole group with just 2 pizzas. This small, super-focused team owns their one little service from beginning to end. And just look at the cultural shift this enables. You go from these slow, bureaucratic release cycles that have to be coordinated across the whole company to these small, autonomous teams that can develop, test, and deploy their service completely on their own. The payments team can push an update 3 times a day, while the search team is on a weekly schedule. They can even choose the absolute best programming language for their specific job, instead of being locked into one technology for the whole shebang. Now, after hearing all those benefits, you might be thinking this is a magic bullet, the answer to everything, right? Well, not so fast. This approach is absolutely not a free lunch. It introduces its own unique and pretty significant set of challenges. So here it is, the final showdown. This is the core trade-off you absolutely have to understand. On one hand, you gain this incredible flexibility. You're scalable, you're resilient, your teams are agile. But in exchange, you take on the immense complexity of managing a distributed system. Instead of one thing to monitor, you might have hundreds. And trying to keep data consistent across all those separate services, that is a massive, massive challenge. Which leaves us with a final pretty big thought. As our digital world gets more and more complex, is this move inevitable? Is this shift from a single, massive sculpture to a whole universe of tiny, interconnected Lego bricks the only way we can build the big things of the future? That's all for this explainer.